welcome back to Alopecia in Life. This is Christine. I'm grateful as always to have you with me. This episode is going to be devoted to how to navigate the insurance industry. And while I'm sure you're saying, Chris, we could spend at least 10 hours talking about this, I'm only going to devote hopefully about 5 minutes to the topic with some very pointed bits of advice that I hope you can take with you to generalize wherever you live and whatever insurance company is carrying you as a patient. And these are pieces of advice that I've learned from trial and error and my own life experience, as everything is on this website, on this YouTube blog. But again, from one alopecia to another, I hope that it's helpful, and it certainly has helped me cut out some of the red tape and some of the emotional ridiculousness that goes into talking with insurance companies sometimes. So my first experience with buying a wig came about 10 years ago, and if you've gone through this process yourself, you know that it's a big one. It's a big step to take if you choose to wear a wig and not go bald. I had been dealing with losing my hair more chronically at that point for several months, and it was really difficult for me to acknowledge that I had to wear a wig if I was going to feel like myself, if I was going to look like myself. So I found this wonderful store. After trial and error, I found a wig. After trial and error, I found this wonderful woman to help me. And I was so glad. I thought, this is wonderful. Problem solved. I can go about my day and not have to worry about my hair. And so shortly after that initial visit to the wig store, I called my insurance company and I said, I have alopecia. I'd like to find out how I can get reimbursement for this wig that I just bought. And it was told very matter-of-factly that, I'm sorry, ma'am, but your wig isn't covered. And I said, why? And they said, well, because alopecia is considered a cosmetic problem, so it's really not necessary for you to have one. And I made this phone call at my lunch break at work, and I remember distinctly losing it with this woman on the phone. First of many opportunities, I had to exercise patience and restraint talking with my insurance provider. So this started a chain of events and phone calls back and forth to my insurance company and also the woman at the wig store who helped me. And when I told her about this experience, she said, no, Christine, here's a pen and some paper. Start taking some notes. I'm going to give you some advice about how to deal with this. And what she said was, I lived in New Hampshire at the time, and the state of New Hampshire requires that any insurance company who conducts business in the state of New Hampshire is legally bound to treat alopecia the same way it treats cancer patients, meaning if you have cancer, you get a wig. If you have alopecia, you get a wig as well. No questions asked, no issue. And so in the course of all the phone calls I made, I got some guidance from the insurance company as to how to make an appeal, which at the end of the day was probably a moot point because they should have just covered me anyway because I lived in New Hampshire. But anyway, we do what we have to do. And so I wrote a very long letter and took particular issue with the fact that alopecia is considered a cosmetic problem. And I provided diagnostic information. I provided the cost of the wig. Down to the letter, I gave them everything they had told me I had to give them. And I think at the end of the day, they were a little embarrassed that they didn't initially cover me when they should have. Once I finally got the response and I called before that response came in to follow up, they said, oh, no, of course it's covered. It's covered, ma'am. It's definitely covered. So that's one thing that was huge for me, that golden nugget of advice to, and I never would have even thought that states have their own requirements about how insurance companies operate. When you're a healthy person, you don't have to deal with this stuff. You just don't know. So I would advise that you find an ally wherever you live, whether it's the lady at the wig store, whether it's your uncle who's an insurance salesman, whether it's your doctor, your mom who can help you make phone calls, someone who can help you with, navigating this system, which I feel as though sometimes it's designed specifically to confuse people so you don't advocate for yourself, you don't continuously push the envelope and be the squeaky wheel. That's my own bias, of course. But so find an ally. That's one thing I think that's really important. The other thing is to educate yourself about what the state's requirements are, wherever you live. And the insurance commissioner could be a potential resource for you in that regard. They adjudicate issues related to insurance coverage. And if an insurance provider isn't doing right by you based on the state's laws, they will let you know, and they'll, from my experience, go to bat for you. So that's another resource, the insurance commissioner. The other thing that I've done for myself over the years is I've realized that durable medical equipment, that policy, that provision in your insurance policy is what relates to you as an alopecian. And it's been really helpful for me to compare the benefit. Whenever the open enrollment period opens up again at my job, I'm always looking at the plans to see what might have changed about that specific durable medical equipment benefit, to see if one policy is better than another. And when I find one that I think looks good, I call them and I say, I have alopecia, this is my situation, I need a wig once a year, I understand the benefit to be this based on your paperwork, but I just want to have a conversation with you about it to make sure that I'm on the same page. And that has been great for me. The other thing that I think is important to know is that insurance companies are required to provide a specific amount of coverage. And if you don't know what your benefit is, they're not necessarily, from my experience, going to work on your behalf in making sure you get the maximum benefit amount. And so being really vigilant and being educated about what your benefits are is really important, and advocating that piece of it for yourself. If you find after all of your work and your research that your state isn't as supportive as New Hampshire is, for instance, for people with alopecia in its dealings and its requirements for insurance companies, start a movement. Be that person who is a champion for people with alopecia in the insurance world and start a process. New Hampshire at one point in history did not have this wonderful benefit, and I'm sure it just took one person or series of several wonderful people to say, this isn't okay, we need this benefit, and we're going to do something about it. And you have that power to do it as well. The National Alopecia Areata Foundation is a wonderful resource. I highly recommend either volunteering with them as a legislative liaison, or using them as a resource to ask questions about these kinds of issues, because I know that they've heard it before and they likely have some really good starting points for you. But be that change. If you feel as though there needs to be change in this regard, think about being the change you want to see. So there are some ideas for you. I hope they're helpful. Please comment on what I've said. Please also visit my website at alopecianlife.wordpress.com. Please follow my YouTube page. I also created a Facebook group page, and it's under the title Christine's Alopecian Life. So there you can follow what I'm doing online. You can like or favorite or pass on what I'm doing to other people, and support other people that you know who might be going through alopecia. So I thank you for joining me today. Thank you so much, as always. And please remember, there's a lot of life to live and a lot of love to give, even when you don't have hair. I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.